Don't say it. Don't.
Race.
Oh, we get it. We get it.
Weekend.
Weekend. What the? Oh, where's the script? Where do you put it? We do quick fire. Quick fire. All right, go, go. All right, F1. You might know it. It's from Drive to Survive on Netflix. Well, they've had some changes for this year, but not F1. W Series has joined F1 as a support series, along with F2, F3, and Porsche Super Cup with 8 rounds this year, the same as F2 and Porsche Super Cup, and one more than F3. There's also been some changes to the cars, even though they're not allowed to make big changes. There's the sound force, the floor, it's a bit smaller now, and there's more slots in the floor as well to reduce as much as 10% downforce, probably more like 5% now with all the winter gains that the teams normally do. And then finally, onto the tracks. There are 23 of them this year, the most ever in the F1 calendar, and that includes a debut in Saudi Arabia for a street race around Jeddah, hopefully with less drone strikes than we saw for Formula E. And the return of old favourites such as Canada, Belgium, Japan are Baku, and then we have Zandvoort returning after 36 years away, and supposed one-offs from last year, Imola and Algarve are coming back as the second and third rounds of the season. And also the Australian Grand Prix is going to be held in November for the first time since Adelaide's last outing in 1995. Alright, we're caught up. Let's look at the teams and drivers. So we begin with the champions Mercedes, who seem to be winning everything in the hybrid era. They've won all the constructors' titles, they've won the team's championships with Nico Rosberg, mostly with Lewis Hamilton, and the 7-time champion heading in to 2021. He could hold almost all the records now after this season with an 8th title. The only guy who seems to be even close to his level out of the top teams is in a different team and a different car, which seems to be slightly less than the Mercedes. So who's going to beat him? Maybe Vitaly Bottas, 8.0 wherever he is now. He needs more porridge. Maybe he could challenge Hamilton. He certainly seems to do it on over one lap quite consistently, but over a race distance doesn't seem to quite be there. And he is on a hot seat with George Russell, who had an out in that Mercedes last year, been the media on his pace and beating Bottas. Well, he might already have lost that seat, who knows. And for Bottas, maybe it's more about trying to be in the shop window than try and challenge Hamilton for the title, but he needs to at least keep the Red Bulls back. Let's see if he can do it. Alright, next up are Mercedes' biggest challengers, closest challengers, Red Bull, with Ferrari falling off the face of earth last year, and their leader is Max Verstappen, who is perhaps pound for pound on the level with Lewis Hamilton, and last year he did have a few DNFs, but he mostly finished on the podium, got some victories, even got some poles as well to add into the mix now. So if we can get some more consistency with the results, like the Red Bull doesn't break down as much, he might not just challenge Bottas, he could even challenge Hamilton for the title. But he does have his toughest teammate since Ricciardo alongside him, and that is Sergio Perez, the star of the midfield for so many years. Finally gets his big chance in a top car. I know he was in a top team earlier, McLaren, in his career, but that car was not very good. This car can consistently challenge for podiums, and for the star of 2020, he needs to do that, as he's the first non-Red Bull young driver in that seat since Mark Webber. And unlike a young driver who can maybe get demoted, there's no parachute for Perez to fall into. He could even be out of the sport if he doesn't perform like he did last year. So just do that, Perez. Maybe challenge Bottas, even maybe Hamilton on the odd occasion, and we might see you again next year. And now we move on to Perez's former team McLaren, the team that has risen in the last few years under the tutelage of Zach Brown and Andreas Seidel. And they were superb last year, getting a top 3 in the constructors' first time in a while, and they could even rise even further this year with a return to Mercedes power units from Renault for the first time since 2014. And they had one of the big signings of the off-season as well, with Daniel Ricciardo joining the team to replace Carlos Sainz. And Ricciardo was outstanding for Renault last year, getting top 5 in the Drivers' Championship, getting multiple podiums, and getting more than double the points he had in 2019. And with a car that got multiple podiums last year, that challenged for the top 5 on numerous occasions, expect more of the same from the Australian. And alongside him is Lando Norris, a young Brit hotshot who got his maiden podium last year. He was great in qualifying against Sainz, but in races sometimes didn't quite match the Spaniard, and he has an even tougher task this year with one of the best drivers on the grid and one of the best driver pairings on the grid as well at McLaren. And next up is a team whose name we haven't seen on the grid as a team name for over 60 years in F1. But Lawrence Stroll, who the concern that part owns and is executive chairman of Aston Martin, has brought the famous British name back to the F1 grid, replacing Racing Point, of course, the team he bought a few years ago. And of course, we see his son Lance in one of those seats. And the young Canadian definitely did improve last year. He got his first pole in F1 round Turkey, got a few podiums, but still needs to improve on that consistency, getting those race results. Even though he did improve his qualifying last year, just needs to back it up on Sunday as well. And there's not a better driver on the grid to perhaps learn from than a 4-time world champion alongside him, as we see Sebastian Vettel leaving Ferrari after 6 seasons, trying in vain to win that title for the Italian team, coming very close a few years ago. But now he's got a new challenge, leading a new outfit on the grid. Well, a renamed outfit, shall we say. And the last time we saw the British Racing Green come back a few years ago in the name of Jaguar, it did not end well. So I'm hoping this is not an Eddie Irvine move for Vettel. And next up is a new name, I believe, for the F1 grid. This name's more associated with Ryan. It won Ryan's first manufacturer's crown back in the 70s and has come back to Ryan with the A110 in recent years. The Alpine name replaces Renault, has its Renault's sports division, and the Alpine name is perhaps more associated with sports car racing in recent years with Signatech. Well, now it's got its own F1 outfit, even though it's still the Endstone outfit. They just keep having name changes. That's all that happens here. And they return with Fernando Alonso as well. After 2 years away from the sport, winning 24 Hours of Daytona, 24 Hours of Le Mans, winning the World Endurance Championship, even taking on Dakar as well in a Toyota. Well, he's back after 2 years away on a 2-year deal. Who knows if this will be Alonso's last chance as he approaches 40 in F1. He's got to at least probably be like matching Ricciardo, what he did last year, fighting top 5 in the Drivers' Championship, fight for like 4th or 3rd in the Constructors, and perhaps next year will be the make or break year for him with the new rules. We'll see if Alpine can make that step forward into the big teams, or we could be saying goodbye to Alonso, perhaps the final time. And maybe we'll be saying that to Esteban Ocon at the end of this season, as the young Frenchman had a very tough return to F1 against Daniel Ricciardo last season. Even though he did get his maiden podium, he just could not match Ricciardo's pace in qualifying. He got a bit better towards the end of the year, but especially in races. And against Fernando Alonso, who's renowned for his race pace, it could be even tougher for him this season, as he's one of those drivers in a hot seat again, like Bottas and Perez, where he has got Gasly rumours breathing down his neck. Let's see if Ocon, the guy who beat Max Verstappen in their F3 title in his younger years, let's see if he can return to that Ocon of old, who challenged Perez as well when they were Racing Point teammates, or if he would just be struggling to cling onto an F1 seat. And on to the prancing horse, or the wadding horse as it was known last season, as Ferrari finished just 6th in the Constructors' Standings. Their joint worst outing in the Constructors' Standings since they began back in 1958. So it's much more for the team to fall under Binotto. But they can definitely rise again, as they struggled with a very poor power unit last year, which was controversially clipped from 2019, not because it wasn't illegal, but because of maybe the penalty and all the backroom dealings they had from the FIA as well. But for 2021, it seems like they will be returning with a stronger power unit, and maybe for Charles Leclerc, he can have a car that can battle for like a top 5 in the driver's standings for him, as he did a superb job last season, grabbing the odd podium, grabbing all the points he could in that car as he finished 8th in the driver's standings. And now with a 5-year deal behind him, this is his team for him to mould around him. So with the new regulations coming up next year, he's got a chance to just see how he does in this kind of almost team leader role. But he does have a very strong teammate alongside him in Carlos Sainz, the darling of the midfield the last couple of years. He led the way in 2019 out of them in 6th, and last year was very impressive, almost won in Italy behind Pierre Gasly, and he's already batted off one young hotshot in Lando Norris. Now he's got another one in Charles Leclerc, who's grabbed wins. Was very impressive against Vettel. Had their run-ins as well as teammates, maybe a bit more cordial between Sainz and Leclerc. But for Carlos, if he just even matches Leclerc, that stock will rise and rise again, even though he might be just a placeholder until the likes of Mick Schumacher or Robert Schwartzman are good enough to take this second Ferrari seat. And next up is AlphaTauri, the Red Bull Junior team, who were very impressive last season, especially on the quick circuits like Imola or Monza, and especially in Pierre Gasly's hands, who grabbed that emotional victory at Monza, backing up the team's victory there back in 2008 as Toro Rosso. And for Gasly, he's in a strange situation. He's on the Red Bull Junior team, but he's not really on Red Bull's plans after that 2019 stint. He's just driving for himself, trying to put himself in that shop window, maybe for the Alpine seat, which he's hotly rumoured for. And alongside him is one of the impressive graduates from F2, and that is Yuki Tsunoda. He finished top 3 with Carlin last year, grabbed a number of victories and really did improve as the season went on, but he was right there from the off as well, battling for victory in Austria as well in the wet. And that's one of the things about Tsunoda. He does seem to adapt quickly. He's a rapid learner as well. And the first Japanese driver since Kamui Kobayashi in 2014. You never know. He could maybe cause Gasly some trouble. And even though he's Honda's man, and Honda of course are leaving after this season, he does so well. You never know. Depending on what Perez does. And now it's on to the team formerly known as Sauber Alfa Romeo, who were a bit vacant last year, shall we say. Battling for the odd midfield points with the likes of Kimi Räikkönen and Gento Giovinazzi, but not really being that impressive. Falling massively back from AlphaTauri. Definitely seem to have a bottom 3, just like we have a top 2. And for Kimi Räikkönen, the most experienced man on the grid, the guy who does this as a hobby, I'm not sure how long he'll be sticking around, as he's in his early 40s. He's not really doing much in this seat, to be honest. He's grabbing the odd point, he's keeping Antonio Giovinazzi honest, but the young Italian was starting to do a bit better than Raikkonen last year, and it's a bit difficult to judge how good Giovinazzi is with Raikkonen being, way past his peak. How good is Antonio, even if he crushes Raikkonen? How good is he? We don't really know in this Alfa Romeo, which, again, with the improved Ferrari power unit, should hopefully be battling for points a bit more often, but it's very congested in the midfield, like it often is in F1. And for Giovinazzi, he might be looking over his shoulder as well. The likes of young Ferrari juniors in Robert Schwartzman or Marcus Armstrong as well. Just like for Yuki Tsunoda as well, he's still got Liam Lawson and De Vries to maybe look back at as well, and Yuri Vips. So for Giovinazzi, it's a bit of a difficult place for him to be in F1, but all he can do is beat Raikkonen and have his fingers crossed for next year. And next up is everyone's favourite team, Haas, as I'm not sure if Gian Haas has jumped ship or not yet, but it does seem to be Mazepin Senior's team now, with that livery and with his company's logos basically everywhere. So they do have Mick Schumacher though, as the young German, the reigning F2 champion, the son of Michael, debuting at the same age in F1 as Michael did at 22. It's going to be tough for him though in his rookie year. He does often struggle in rookie years as well, such as he did in F3 and F2. And with a car that's not going to be really developed this season, as Haas are putting all the eggs in the 2022 basket, who knows how well this is going to be for Mick. He might just be lucky to score 1 or 2 points or get out of Q3 or Q1 occasionally. Alongside him is Mazepin Jr., who unfortunately keeps the team afloat and hopefully won't be a disgrace. And finally it is Williams, as for the first time since they were founded, they're not led by a Williams family member at the beginning of the season, as this is definitely Dorilton Capital's team now. But that does mean Williams has a bit more money, maybe than they've had in the past, so this could be their best season for a few years, especially with George Russell leading the way for them, as he's chasing that Mercedes carrot that is dangling in front of him. That second seat after that impressive debut with the Mercedes last year at Sakir. But with Williams, if he just continue getting the odd, maybe even Q3 outing, but definitely getting out of Q2, challenging for points maybe as well. Let's score his first point for Williams and just continue crushing it against his teammate. Surely Russell will be moving on at the end of this season. But for his teammate Nicholas Latifi, he got consistent 11th place finishes last year. Well, he got a few of them. Never know, this year with the car being a bit better, it could be consistent top 10 finishes, as he if he just gets a bit closer to Russell as well, like we saw in F2 him improve over the years, so if he can get a bit closer to Russell as well, that's not a bad job for him, and get into Q2 perhaps a bit more as well, and you never know, could be to beat Russell in the standards in 2019 with that point in Germany. You never know, for the TV he could be the Kibitzer to Russell again, you know, or the Tarso Marcus to Russell Alonso. There you go. So you go, you now know everything about F1. Let's go back to Drive to Survive, shall we? What do you mean it's F2? Fine. Meanwhile in F2 there's like half the field that could be battling for the title, and even though it's not one of the deepest fields for a number of years, there's still some very strong drivers at the top, such as Premier Pair, Robert Schwartzman and Oscar Piastri, the last couple of F3 champions in the same team together. They could get a bit spicy, especially if an F1 seat such as Alfa Romeo is on the cards for next season. And then we've got Uni Vitriosi with the experienced Gonruso, and the boy just my tail pronunciation, who did pretty well last year. And then we've got the rapid rookie Felipe Drogovic from MP Motorsport. He won a few races last year. Well, those two together could be a very strong pairing. Then for Carlin, we've got the unpredictable Dan Ticktum. You never know what you're going to get from him, apart from great team radio. And then we've got the last winner actually in F2 heading into this season, Juan Duavala, the Red Bull Junior, who was very impressive towards the end of last year. Maybe he could step up and challenge for the title like his teammate Yuki Tsunoda did last season. And then we've got a high-tech pair who also have a couple of Red Bull Juniors in Liam Lawson and Yuri Vips. Remember Yuri Vips? The Estonian was on the rise in F3 a couple of years ago, until last year he was meant to go to Super Formula, following the footsteps of like Priya Gasly beforehand, but couldn't make it across. So he did some Formula Regional outings, did some outings in F2 with Dam as well. He's back in a full-time seat, and watch out for Vips. He is very strong. He could definitely challenge for the title. Same for Lawson, who's as well a New Zealand Grand Prix winner in the past, a winner of the Toyota Racing Series, and actually the last win in F3, so at the end of last year. He was very unlucky not to be in that title fight in F3 last season, so a very strong pairing for High Tech, and another fast young Kiwi. We've seen quite a few of those in the last few years. And in at Arc Grand Prix, we still got Christian Lundgaard, the Alpine Junior, who was very impressive last year, winning a number of races, even though he kind of went off the ball towards the end of the season. Results rise, once again expect him to be right up there in the championship. And alongside him, he's got a very impressive Frenchman, Sauber Junior, Theo Pourchaire, who was run-up in F3 last year, the teenager, winning numerous races, challenging for the title. And again, maybe he can step up and be challenging, just like we perhaps expected Marcus Armstrong to do last year. Hopefully he doesn't have the Armstrong curse on him though, as it does seem that Arc Grand Prix only have like one good car throughout the whole of the year, so hopefully for the first time in a while we could see two strong cars for them this year. And then watch out also for the likes of MP Motorsports, Macau Grand Prix winner Richard Fourchier, who's with the team for who knows how long actually, but he is very strong. He is a young Dutchman, a former Red Bull Junior. Hopefully he, after finishing top 10 in F3 last year, he can do the same this year as a rookie in F2. Then we've got Charusi's F3 winner David Beckman as well, who was pretty impressive last year. And again, Charus normally have at least one good driver in their seats. And last year, of course, they had like their Travis, so maybe Beckman can follow in his steps. And then finally at Dams, we've got the Ferrari Junior Marcus Armstrong. Hopefully his curse hasn't followed him across from Arc Grand Prix. And then we've got Campos Racing's as well, Formula Regional Champion Gianluca Petrov, the young Brazilian who beat off the likes of Arthur Leclerc as well to that title last year. He was very impressive last year in that series, but this is a huge step up to F2, so watch out for him to maybe just be battling for maybe top 10 in the driver's standing in the end, but to at least get better as the season goes on. So there you go, there's your best of F2. And there's your rapid fire preview of the F1 and a bit of the F2 season as well. These probably won't be my main series to cover throughout the year, but I do expect the odd video covering F1 and F2, as we do try and cover all the motorsport we can here on Power Oversteer. But I will see you next time. Don't tell me to do another rapid fire one. MotoGP. Oh my.